What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the LTL True Crime Podcast. And we are here on this Thursday evening, the last day in November 30th, 2023. Tomorrow will be December. We have 31 days to go in December, and then we will be at our new year into 2024. I hope everybody had an amazing year this year. Things certainly here on LTL has picked up over the last 8 months, so that's good. And we'll see. We'll have to see what happens in 2024. Maybe some big things, some big news. Maybe we see a Brian Koberger case. It is possible. But tonight we are here. We're going to talk about WWF, WWE legend Tammy Sunny Sytch. And if you remember Sunny, she had a hell of a run back in the 90s. And in 1996, she was claimed the most downloaded woman on the internet. That is dramatic change. Dramatic change. She had a longtime boyfriend, Chris Candido, that got her into the business. She did some runs in WWE, WWF. She was ECW for a little while, had a run with the Road Warriors. I'm trying to think of some of the other people. She had the notorious kind of love affair with Shawn Michaels, HBK, which is, there was some controversy around that because I think that spun around with Bret the Hitman Hart, and I think that led to a lot of their beefs as well. So, someone that was very controversial, one of the most beautiful women that have ever graced the WWE. I would love to play some of the videos, but I can't. WWE keeps that stuff copywritten pretty tight. And I'd love to just show it, but go back and look. I mean, the mid-90s, Sunny was the woman. that was the woman that us young kids all fawned over and drooled, and holy shit. I mean, huge dramatic turn of events in her life, and a superstar, a total superstar, and has just completely screwed her life up, multiple DUIs, and we'll get into that. And it's just like you start to kind of think about it. These just people that become lost in their own ways. Are they a product of that business? Is there more things going on here? Is it a mental health issue? Is it a dependency issue? Maybe it entails a lot of those things. Maybe that rise to fame so fast and being on top of the world, and then when you get literally the stool taken out from under you and you fall to the ground, maybe you can't deal with that pressure. We see that a lot with musicians, rap stars, rock stars. We see it with athletes that just come from nothing, and then someone says, here's $60 million, and in 5 years they're broke, and they're out on the streets. Delonte West, a huge kind of Celtics basketball player back in the 90s, 2000s, went from rags to riches and right back to rags again, was literally out on the streets. And Mark Cuban from the Dallas Mavericks actually found him, got him off the streets, got him clean. And from so far as what I know, I think he's still clean and literally just working a normal job now. And I think helping kids with dependency issues. I think the last time I read, I could be wrong on that, but it's crazy. It's crazy how these people elevate to such a high level, and then all of a sudden they fall off. So, but we'll get into what happened with Sunny here, in a lot of trouble. Let me just stop sharing the screen. Hey, that's me. It's me on the screen. Look at that. Look at the chat. Everybody's here. All right, let me pull up this article from Fox News, and then I'll go through some of the Wikipedia to go through some of her legal troubles, and then we're actually going to hear her sentencing. She actually stood up in court and spoke, and we will go through that as well. So WWE legend, it's WWE now. I still like WWF, but that's a whole other argument. We won't get into that. But anyway, WWE World Wrestling Entertainment legend Tammy Sytch sentenced in deadly Florida crash. Sytch pled no contest to several charges. It was back on the other day on November 27th. So a little late to get in this, but it's all right. We're here tonight. So WWE legend Sunny, whose real name is Tammy Sytch, was sentenced Monday to nearly 2 decades in prison and nearly a decade of probation for a deadly DUI crash in Florida last year. Sytch received 17 years in prison, a 10-year sentence, and a 7-year sentence, both meant to be serving consecutively, according to Fox 35 Orlando. She pled no contest to several charges in 2022 crash in Daytona Beach. The charges included driving with a suspended license, DUI to damage to person, and DUI to damage to property. You can see her in court. What a dramatic change. Huge dramatic change. Wow. The 50-year-old, and she's only 50. She's only 50. 50-year-old New Jersey native received credit for more than 500 days for time served. She will also need to complete 8 years of probation, 50 hours community service, and pay a $10,000 fine. The WWE famer read a statement to the judge during the sentencing hearing. We're going to hear that. I'm not going to play the quote because I'm not going to read the quote because we're going to hear it. So I'm just going to bounce down here in the article. Excuse me. Sytch blood alcohol level was 3 times the legal limit when struck and killed 75-year-old Julian Laster. Police said her vehicle crashed into Laster, which hit a third vehicle. Laster's family told the station that they were disappointed with the sentence. We are a little bit disappointed in the outcome. I think it should have been longer than what she agreed to. Whitney Laster Hill, Julian's daughter, said. Just want to look up here and get to this super duper chat. Art says, with the $9.99, thank you so much. He said, history goes a long way. Too bad for what she did. Absolutely. You are responsible for what you do in your life. You are responsible for what choices you make in your life. And addicts don't understand that until hopefully they hit rock bottom and get that necessary help that they need. You are the master of your own fate. That's kind of a thing that I've lived by in life. You are the sole decision maker in your life. Whether you think it's your brain, that intuition, if you think that's God speaking to you, whatever it may be, that little voice inside your head is you. You are the person that makes that decision. Do I go left? Do I go right? Do I drink this alcohol and drive? Do I do these drugs and drive? That's on you. That's nobody else's fault. And granted, there are things that can contribute to that. Absolutely. Addiction, mental health, but you have to get the necessary help for those things, and you have to be held accountable. You can't go around driving and running people over and killing them. You can't do it. And obviously she didn't learn a lesson, and we're going to see a lot of her history here, a lot of her history of things where she should have been held more accountable, in my opinion. So this is just back in 2011. This is almost maybe 13 years later, and look at her now. Look at the condition that she's in. It's crazy. Sytch performed in WWE under the moniker Sunny. She became wildly popular, known as in pro wrestling the first WWE diva. However, since 2012, she's built up a lengthy rap sheet, which includes multiple DUI arrests in Pennsylvania and New Jersey. She should have been held accountable back then. And what happens is these super duper liberal states, these super duper liberal laws allow people like this, probably based on her status as well. It probably has a little bit to do with it, who she was and who she is. And they allow these people to walk, and then it gets into a serious situation like this. I mean, how many times we heard this with rock stars, entertainers, sports athletes that have gotten these similar situations? They get off on a slap on the wrist, and they create a a bigger crime. Even, just celebrities in general, anybody of power gets in these situations. So that's it for the article here. Just a little brief synopsis. I'm going to pull up Wikipedia and we can look at some of her past run-ins, and then we can go over and watch the sentencing hearing. I think that would be interesting to watch. Again, Tammy Lynn Sytch, better known as Sunny. She had basically a little bit of a run in 1992 to 1995, Smoky Mountain Wrestling. She came over to WWF 94 to 98. She was with, I'm just trying to think of it. She was with the Road Warriors for a little while. She was with the Smoking Guns, or the Young Guns, Smoking Guns, with what's his name? The badass Billy Gunn and Bart Gunn. And I'm just trying to read here. Some of the stuff starts to come back. Farouk, she was with for a little while, but had a hell of a run, as a manager. And I thought, personally myself, I loved her when she was with the Road Warriors. I think she did a great job being kind of their manager and their valet. It just really worked. Those two huge, powerful guys with the spikes on their shoulders, the face paint, and then you had this beautiful blonde with them, and it was just really cool, really, really cool. I thought that was the best. ECW, she was great in, and then she went to WCW. And I think things started to kind of fall off for her when Candido passed away. That, I think, when her life started to kind of spin out of control. Independent circuit from 2018, and then essentially retired then as well too. Just going to pull up this $4.99 from Art. Art says, how did she react to the sentencing? Do we know? I think she's just stone-faced. I think just absolutely stone-faced. So she kind of held it together. She had a short stint back with the WWE, 2007, 9, and 11. She also tried to do the adult entertainment industry. She did a video, it says here, with Vivid in 2016. And all your favorite hits of Sunny Side Up, In Through the Back Door. So I'll leave that all up to you to think what that movie's about. But have fun, enjoy that if you want to watch that. And then Sytch tried the OnlyFans thing as well back in 2020. Goes into her personal life here. Smart girl. I mean, studied medical technology, and then all her legal issues started to kind of come together in 2012. Sytch was arrested 5 times in 4-week span for disorderly conduct, 3 third-degree burglary, and 3 counts of violating a protective order. She was arrested a 6th time in January 2013 for violating a protective order. Sytch served 114 days in a Connecticut jail and was released in May of 2013. Again, a very liberal state. Very liberal state. Throughout May and June of 2015, Sytch was arrested in Pennsylvania, another liberal state, 3 times for driving under the influence, DUIs. Sytch pled guilty to all 3 charges in January of 2016. A judge sentenced her to 90 days in jail, 90 days in jail for 3 DUIs, August 18th, but counted her as 97 days in rehab as time served. However, she was charged with violating her parole that September and remained in jail until February of 2017. Let's see. Where am I here? While on probation, Sytch was arrested in New Jersey for 2 more DUIs. January 23rd, February 2018, and February 2nd, 2018, and was also charged with fleeing the scene of an accident in relation to the February 2nd arrest after failing to appear in court. Either case, she was arrested in February 27, 2018 for two fugitive from justice charges and 6 counts of contempt in court. Who are these judges? Who are these judges that are handing down these sentences and giving this woman a pass? I think you need to look at the legal system here. I think that she failed herself, but obviously the legal system failed her as well too. She got slaps on the hands. While she was in processed, it was discovered that she was a fugitive from justice due to her parole in Pennsylvania having been revoked in 2017. Sytch was subsequently extradited to Pennsylvania, another liberal state again, very liberal laws. March 23rd, remained in Carbon County Correctional Facility, and I'm not even going to try it, Nassauing until she was paroled. Uh, uh, October 9th, 2018. A bench warrant was issued for Sytch in Pennsylvania. February 15, 2019, and the Carbon County Probation Department filed a motion to revoke Sytch's October. And this is crazy. All this legal. She was arrested in Seaside Heights, New Jersey later that month for another DUI. Another DUI. How many DUIs is she going to be allowed to get? You know, don't pass go, don't pay, don't collect $200. What the hell, man? Department was discovered that she had outstanding warrants in both uh, in New Jersey. She was charged with contempt of court on both warrants. On March 20th, Sytch was extradited from Monmouth County back to Carbon County Correctional Facility to address her Pennsylvania charges over a year in prison. Sytch was released on February 25th, 2020. Sytch was arrested again on July 13, 2020 for allegedly eluding a police officer, contempt violation of domestic violence restraining order, and operating a motor vehicle during a second license suspension. She was held at Mammoth Correctional Institution. She was released on June 9, 2021 due to court. She's been in fucking jail since 2012. Sytch was arrested again 2013 in Keansburg, New Jersey, and unlawfully possessing a weapon and making terrorist threats. She was booked in a Monmouth County Correctional Facility, but released the following day after being ordered to check in weekly with the court. The charges stem from the incident in which she allegedly threatened to murder an inmate partner with a pair of scissors. If convicted, Sytch faced 11 years in prison. She was arrested again a month later in Keansburg on charges with 11 driving offenses, including another DUI. On March 25th, 2022, Sytch was involved in a fatal car crash in Volusia County, Florida, that killed a 75-year-old man. According to the police report from the Ormond Beach Police Department, Sytch was driving a 2012 Mercedes-Benz when she crashed in the rear of a 2013 Kia Sorento that had been stopped at a stoplight. Witnesses told police that Sytch was driving a high speed when she crashed into the Kia Sorento. Sytch was transported to the hospital with unknown injuries, and a sample of her blood was taken for analysis. In May of 2022, Sytch was arrested on a DUI and manslaughter related charges after toxicology reports found that her blood alcohol content was around 3.5 times the legal limit during a fatal car crash, and initially began released after posting $227,000 bond. Wait a second. So they had her blood on the 25th of March and they waited till May to arrest her? So she was out there again for 2 months? A judge deemed her to be danger to the community and revoked her bond 6 days later. Yeah, gee, you think? And Sytch was returned to jail on August 16, 2023. Sytch pled no contest to the charges. She was sentenced to 17 and a half years in prison, 17 and a half years in prison, and 8 years of probation on November 27, 2023. You know why she's in jail? I'm going to tell you right now, you know why she's in jail. Because she pulled this shit in Florida, and it finally caught up to her. A state that's just going to bounce you when you commit shit like this. Look at all the charges that she had throughout Pennsylvania and New Jersey and had slaps on the wrists. Slap on the back of the hand, slap on the hand, slap on the hand, slap on the hand, right? None of the wrist. The hell am I saying? Slap on the hand. But she pulled that shit in Florida, and that's it. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think her sentence is long enough. Knowing her history, I mean, she'll get out when she's 50. She'll be out at 67. And maybe, I don't know what the terms of sentence there. Do you have to serve your entire sentence there? Or maybe it's 85%. I mean, shit, she might be out at 60 and be able to do this shit again. But I don't think it's long enough. She's clearly hasn't learned her lesson. So, I mean, hopefully, Sunny has some hard thinking to do about her life and get her life straightened out, and hopefully becomes a model inmate and gets through this process. Wild, wild shit that someone that has this history. I mean, let's see. Let's count them up. I'm just trying to see. Burglary. So that means she was in a house that she wasn't supposed to be into 3 times. 3. I'm going to count all the DUIs. 3, 4, 5. 6. 7. 8. She had 8 DUIs that I can read. She's going to come climb on me? Well, she could climb on me if she looked like she did back in 1996, but I don't think I want her climbing on me now. All right, let's look at the sentence hearing. Holy smokes. This is unbelievable. Here we go. That's unbelievable. I counted 8. And real quick, I just want to do this. If you all watching here, you want to support my channel directly, I'm going to drop that link. It's called Buy Me a Coffee. Doesn't even like coffee. The link is for a site that's like Patreon, and I'll kind of show you here. Give me a second. And it's a great site because the cool thing about it is 95% of it comes back to the creator. So Buy Me a Coffee is right here. I have membership levels where you can join a monthly membership, and it kind of follows my same memberships like it does on YouTube. If you want to support me there, or you can just go over to the regular support button. You can pick how many donations you want to make, how many coffees you want to buy, and directly support me. The cool thing about it is when you make a donation, there are multiple tools inside this app where it can actually do a mass email. Because I always hear a lot of people go, I never knew that you were streaming. I send out emails every day to let everybody know what time I'm actually streaming at. And this can give you some direct contact with the creator as well. It puts you kind of on a list. So if you want to, you can just click on that link. You can buy me a coffee. I would appreciate it. So let's go back to the hearing here. It's enough of my advertising and my pitch, but we'll go back to the hearing. Here she goes.
All right, we're back on the record. Defendant's back with counsel, states represented by Mr. Williger and Ms. Schwartz. Ready to proceed?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so at this point, you're asking to put your client on, so you're sort of reopening, I guess.
Not reopening, Your Honor, not for evidentiary purposes, just for her to give a statement prior to sentencing an unsworn allocution.
All right, so you don't want her sworn in?
No.
Okay.
And where would you like to hear?
If she wants to step to the podium?
He does look like Honey Boo Boo's mom. All right, here we go. Wow, what a change, huh?
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Excuse me. I'm battling a little bit of a cold this week. I lost my voice. When I was 16 years old, I decided to apply to college and study biology and pre-med because I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to help people through their pain and suffering, but more importantly, I wanted to heal people. The first line of the Hippocratic.
I'm going to tell you right now, look at the judge's body language. She's already made up her mind. She ain't listening. She has blocked her out.
Gotta go with Reed's. I will do no harm. On March 25th, 2022, I did the opposite of that. I did harm to someone else, and my entire being was crushed. My career path took a different course than medical, but my morals, values, and ethics have always remained the same. And I've had time to consider things like some of the good that came from my career. Through my time in the industry, I was able to help people from one end of the spectrum to the other. I entertained and brought happiness to some people's lives. Once I was able to help a stranger who was having a seizure at one of my appearances at a convention. And I've made terminally ill children's wishes come through the Make-A-Wish Foundation. I have done something horrible, but I am so much more than the worst that I have done. I try to think about the good I've done, because when I sit alone thinking about what I did to the Lasser family that tragic day, from a stupid decision, I feel the regret and remorse deep inside my soul. I know that they don't get to rest knowing he's gone. Because when I was 20, I lost my father as well to heart disease. And just like
She's making this about her. I'm going to stop it right now and say she's making it about her. That this is, Judge, you should feel bad for me. You should feel bad for me. All these bad things happened to me, and I killed someone, but you should feel bad for me.
last August, my 87-year-old mother passed away while I've been incarcerated. I never got to say goodbye to her, just as they didn't get to say goodbye to their beloved family member. I know how it feels,
From your choices.
how it hurts, how it tears her heart out. And for that, I'm truly, truly sorry. I know my words are not enough.
I think she's only sorry because she knows she's going to jail for 17 years.
But please know that I think about you every day. Every second of every day. And I know I will do whatever I can to make the changes I need to make sure this never happens again. No one should have to go through this. And please know that every single second of every day since the crash, I have wished I could trade places with you. I try to think back to what caused my downfall. And I think it started with the death of my fiance, Chris, in 2005.
That's what I said, Chris
He
Candido.
was tragically taken from this world. And I hated myself for not being able to change things for him, to heal him and care for him, and keep him safe. But what followed was a huge string of mistakes that I should have learned from. I should have learned, but I couldn't connect my mind to my heart to do the right thing. There are many things in my life that I wish I would have done differently. But they say everything happens for a reason. I refuse to go backward and make the same mistakes again. Because the pain I feel in my heart for what happened is indescribable. It haunts me daily and each night in my nightmares. But the only way to fix it is to truly change my path. If I could turn back time, I would. If I could find a way to change the events that happened that day, I would in a heartbeat. If I could bring Mr. Lasser back and take his place, I would in an instant. I feel that if I was given the chance to change, to redeem myself, and if I used my resources, my personal experiences, my history, and a little bit of the fame that I garnered a long time ago, I can be a true asset to the community by helping to educate our youth and adults about the dangers of drinking and driving, the dangers of not having your mental illness properly treated, and the catastrophic events that can result from it. A precious life was lost that tragic day, and I'm so incredibly sorry for that. I would ask that you give me the opportunity to atone for what I've done and then to be released and decided to contribute to it in the most positive way possible. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Judge ain't having it. I don't see tears. You see tears?
All right,
No
since our
tears.
Presentation started with the defense, we're closing, let's go ahead and start with the defense.
I can't get over. I can't get over. This. That's her. That's a huge change. I can't get over it. It's unbelievable. Wow. What a dramatic turn of events in this woman's life.
Thank you, Judge. A bit of housekeeping. I like to renew our previous objection to, we talked about it at sidebar, you're considering the uncertified documents. We do not have any additional, you asked for additional case law. I do not have it, but we'll renew our objection to that. I'd also like to start by acknowledging the score sheet and the maximum sentence. We talked briefly about the Gabriel case. It's our position that the maximum, the statutory maximum in this case is 20 years. We acknowledge that Gabriel, which is found at 314 Southern 3rd, 1243, is the state of the law in Florida, but we object to its application to Ms. Sytch. The statutory language at issue is plainly ambiguous.
Did it again.
The Supreme Court of Gabriel should accordingly have applied the rule of lenity. Courts should apply the rule of lenity where a reasonable doubt persists about a statute's intended scope, even after the review of the language of the statute and the policies that motivated its passage. I have two cases to cite. One is called Moskal versus United States, 409 U.S. 108.
I'm sorry, give me that site one more time.
I can, Judge. I also brought copies for you in the state. That case is Moskal, Moskal, 409 U.S. 108.
All right, you have a copy?
I do. Second case is called Batchelder, Batchelder, 442 U.S. 114. I have a copy of that one coming to you now. And that case stands for the proposition that a sentencing statute denies the federal guarantee of due process if it does not afford fair notice of penalty that applies to criminal conduct. That concludes my presentation on the Gabriel issue, Judge, but I'll give you time to read if you'd like.
All right, yeah, just a moment.
Basically enhancing the sentencing punishment for a criminal defendant. And that's where the ambiguity lies. And so the thrust of the argument is that the rule of lenity should have been applied. And this is an argument at the appellate level.
Well, let me stop you for a minute. The case law says that should be applied if something is ambiguous.
Yes.
So my question is, what about Gabriel is ambiguous?
Right. And so it's the application to the thrust of our argument then, Judge, is that the defendant is not on notice. That's ambiguous. Coming into the sentencing, that they're not on notice about it. It's been they're facing an enhancement, and they're not noticed.
Was this not the same score sheet that was provided at her plea?
We've been provided this score sheet, yes, Judge.
When she entered her plea that day, she was aware that she scored beyond the statutory maximum. That's for that count, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, and I'm not arguing with you, I'm just trying to clarify in this argument.
It's a policy argument, Judge, that we have about the Gabriel case.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you, go ahead.
Okay. All right. So now turning to the sentencing, Judge, what we've heard all day today is a tragedy. Nothing that we've presented or said is meant to take away from the life of Mr. Lassiter. We're truly sorry for the loss this family has suffered. What we have offered today is not an excuse or justification. We are aware, Tammy is aware that she's here today to be punished. She takes responsibility, and that's why she has pled to these charges. Instead, our effort today, what we offer is the full picture of a person who's before you to be sentenced. Because it's our belief that each of us is more than the worst thing that we have done. So, how did we arrive at the courtroom today? As we've heard, Tammy was a little girl raised by alcoholic parents, and she had this desire to be loved. She did well enough academically in high school to be accepted to the University of Tennessee, and her goal was to be a doctor. She never did make it to medical school, though, because her boyfriend, Chris Candido, was rising in the ranks of the wrestling entertainment, and Tammy was set on following him. So she did. Fortunately for her, she was catapulted into the wrestling business, where she too did well. And while she did have successes during this time, it did not come without a cost to her. This is a rough business that resulted in significant physical and emotional trauma to her. And this wrestling lifestyle fueled her alcoholism, which she clearly struggles with. This relationship with Chris began when she was in high school, and it lasted 16 years, as you've heard.
So again, they're trying to make it about her now. This is a sympathy thing on her.
He suddenly died in 2005 of a blood clot. The death of Chris Candido was the watershed event of her life, one that she was ultimately unable to pull out of. But why? We now know why. It turns out that it was more than a need to be loved that's driving her. We've heard from Dr. Fabian and Dr. Danziger, and they've answered that for us. She also suffers from mental illness. It's a mental illness that was misdiagnosed, and what followed was a pattern of improper medical treatment for her entire life. She was misdiagnosed. She was prescribed antidepressants rather than the medication for bipolar
How was
disorder,
that?
which she needed, and that caused a
Was that
worsening
a
of her
bullshit?
symptoms.
Did you hear that bullshit? Bullshit.
Compounded by this misdiagnosis
Did you hear it?
that's driving her.
Bullshit.
We've heard from Dr. Fabian and Dr. Danziger, and they've answered that for us. She also suffers from mental illness. It's a mental illness that was misdiagnosed, and what followed was a pattern of improper medical treatment for her entire life. She was misdiagnosed. She was prescribed antidepressants rather than the medication for bipolar disorder, which she needed, and that caused a worsening of her symptoms. Compounded by this misdiagnosis, misdiagnosed mental illness, she was also trapped in this continuing cycle of domestic violence. So she goes through this series of relationships where she's abused, beaten down, and then continues this pattern that you've heard about, which basically goes from the time in 2005 when she leaves this relationship she had with Chris Candido until ultimately the arrest in this case. Tammy has done wrong in her life, but she's also positively impacted people throughout the world.
It's the their attorney
letters.
trying to save her.
And she's told you herself about her charity work, her work with the Make-A-Wish Foundation. You've read that she is a supportive and loving friend. She cares for her friends. She cares for her friends' families and her children as well. She didn't choose to be born to alcoholic parents. She didn't choose to have mental illness. And she certainly didn't choose to be misdiagnosed and given the wrong treatment plan. These are not excuses. These are not justifications, but it's how we ended up here today. So we're at a pivotal moment, and we urge you to consider the downward departure grounds listed in Florida Statute 921-0026D. The defendant requires specialized treatment for a mental disorder that's unrelated to substance abuse or addiction, and the defendant is amenable to treatment. There's ample evidence that she suffers from a mental disorder that's unrelated to substance abuse, and she is amenable to treatment. Those mental disorders, as you've heard, are bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, and post-traumatic stress disorder. And they require not only medication, but also intensive therapy. We've also presented testimony regarding her substance abuse disorder, and this is separate from her other diagnoses. And we would ask that the court consider this as general mitigation, since this does not constitute a basis for a downward departure. Now, if the court is not persuaded to grant a downward departure, the options are Tammy can be thrown away without treatment for the next 2 decades, or the court can find the appropriate mix, punishment and rehabilitation that Tammy needs. So what's the best for Tammy? Or maybe the better question is, what's the best for society? In this case, we have a clear path for mental health rehabilitation. Dr. Danziger set it out very well, so did Dr. Fabian. Proper bipolar medication, counseling, treatment, and proper monitoring. She will be released someday. She will be our neighbor, our coworker. She will be a citizen in this community again. She can either be released with a solid plan to fix both her mental health issues and her substance abuse issues, or she can be released an even more broken person than she was before she entered prison. Through Dr. Fabian and Dr. Danziger, we finally identified the right way to allow Tammy the chance to let her positive attributes lead, rather than let her mental illness and substance abuse lead her. She needs cognitive behavioral therapy, intensive mental health treatment, as well as intensive substance abuse treatment. And the sentencing memo, the state suggests 6 months of probation. Her issues cannot be fixed in 6 months of probation. 6 months of probation would be setting her up and society up for failure. These issues took a lifetime to build, and they'll take years to fix. Now, Judge, you heard a preview of the testimony of the traffic homicide investigator here today. There were legitimate issues in this case that could have been litigated. Tammy was steadfast in her desire to resolve this case with a plea and avoid putting the family through a trial. It's been said that Tammy is not someone who is responsible. She is someone who is.
Oh, you guys are too funny.
She accepts responsibility.
Let's recognize this. $2 super chat from, I think I might actually put that on a t-shirt. Put it on a t-shirt. You guys are so crazy. Oh, it's too funny. Thank you for the $2. I think I might actually put that on a t-shirt. Oh, Jesus.
That's what she's done here today.
You
heard it from her directly.
Too much.
She's done that today. She's accepted responsibility. She knows she's here to be punished, and that's what she's done. I'm here to remind you that she is more than the worst thing she's ever done. give her an opportunity to accept her punishment, but also be properly rehabilitated with a lengthy term of probation, including both mental health and substance abuse treatment. It's what's best for Tammy, but it's also what's best for society. Thank you, Judge.
All right, thank you. Steve? Do you have a clean copy of the score sheet for today? I do that. It's consistent with what we filed at the plea.
Provided the defense for their review as well.
Again, no objection from the defense.
No objection, Judge, other than previously stated.
Well,
Hello.
Sorry.
I said, let's talk about that. You're talking about the priors?
Oh, no, just the Gabriel argument.
Oh, just the Gabriel argument. All right, so you're not contesting the priors.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Judge, as to the Gabriel argument, the two cases I'll just distinguish. Obviously, as to the Moskal case, I don't think the defense has presented an ambiguity argument. As to Gabriel, if anything, the Florida Supreme Court has delineated the conflict between the
I
second.
keep thinking they say Moscow because it sounds like Moscow, doesn't it? But it's not.
And the fifth in great detail. That, in fact, is the case that is cited on the current score sheet that is submitted in every single case that occurs in complete or a sentencing in the state of Florida at this point. As to the Balcheddar case, I would just distinguish that one briefly because the two different statutes that were cited, this case states that the substantive elements are identical and that the statutes are identical except for the penalty provision. Obviously, that's not what we have here. It is not two identical statutes before the court for sentencing that only deviate in a sentencing portion.
It appears those statutes have been changed because there's flags all over their sites.
Yes, Your Honor. As to the request for downward departure, obviously at that point, the court has two different considerations. The first prong is that the defense has to show and present evidence that she qualifies for the downward departure. And then the second prong is if the court finds that she does qualify for a downward departure, should the court entertain a downward departure. As far as the evidence presented by the defense, I would just point out that there's been testimony here today in reference to prior medication that she was taking, prior treatment that she's received. I would just point out that we don't have any of these records. Anything that she was on is all self-reported by the defendant. We haven't seen a single prescription. I'd also argue to the court that treatment and medication are both available in the Department of Corrections. And I'd also argue that even though the doctors have tried to distinguish and delineate the substance abuse issue from the mental disorders, it's the state's argument all of this is intertwined. However, even if the court finds that they've met that burden, I would argue to the court, and really the rest of the state's argument is pertaining to why the court should not downward depart. It starts with the defendant's criminal history, and it's clear from her criminal history that time after time after time, the defendant is ignoring the law, ignoring court orders, and every single prior that she has is either involving illicit substances, driving offenses, or disregard for authority. So starting with Connecticut back in 2012, she's convicted
You're gonna
of
get the history
violating
now.
a protective order, which was a felony in Connecticut. She was sentenced to 3 years of jail that was suspended with 2 years of conditional discharge. So we point out that
Stress.
That's not in the score sheet, though.
correct.
Sometimes people in extreme stress will and do this with their eyes. It's under because she's under extreme stress right now. So her lips are and her eyes are twitching. That's extreme stress. She's waiting for the sentence. She knows it's coming. She knows it's going to be bad. And that's just a stress reaction. You know, people sometimes they get like a tick or something like that. I know like under extreme stress, like I'll breathe in really deep, you know, stuff like that. Fidget my hands, you know, fidget my feet.
And
She got stress going on, big time
the score
stress.
sheet was submitted at the time of the plea. Subsequent to that, we've outlined and gone through a deep dive of her criminal history. So I acknowledge that they're not on the score sheet. But that violation of protective order, again, is a court order that she is failing to abide by. Then you move to her New Jersey history. In 2005, she's adjudicated guilty of possession of certain prescription drugs. Again, in 2005, she's
See, I just looked lips and eye twitching, and I put stress. Twitches are usually nothing to worry about. They are often linked to stress and anxiety, tiredness and exhaustion, drinking caffeine and or alcohol. Can emotional stress cause eye twitching? The most common stress of eye twitches are stress and fatigue. Make sure that you get enough exercise, hydrate, Yeah. Facial twitching. Facial twitching can be caused by various factors, including stress and anxiety. Emotional stress and anxiety can cause facial twitching, particularly around the eyes. Fatigue, lack of sleep, and exertion, tiredness, caffeine consumption, and too much caffeine can trigger facial twitching. So she's just under extreme stress. She knows it's coming.
guilty of wandering and prowling to obtain a controlled substance. In January of 2008, she completed a pretrial intervention for charges
I've seen people do that before.
Taking and obtaining a controlled dangerous substance by fraud. And then in 2021, a felony resisting arrest
Super stress.
as a means to create a substantial risk of causing physical injury to the public servant or another. You then move on to her Pennsylvania history, which the state's going to argue that this is the biggest issue. You've got 3 DUIs in a span of 21 days. The first one is May 30th of 2015. She's charged with a slew of offenses, including DUI, driving while operating privileges suspended or revoked, careless driving. In that probable cause affidavit, her blood alcohol content is a 0.253.
Thanks so much for the $10. I got that.
Yes.
You're in the chat. I appreciate it.
She pleads only
Thanks
to
for the
the
$10
DUI.
donation.
The information cites all the others, but she's convicted of the DUI with a 0.253. She ends up pleading to the next 2 offenses that I'm going to talk to and subsequently violates the probation on all 3 of them. But the next one happens just 2 days later on June 1st of 2015. Again, she's charged by information with a slew of offenses: DUI, driving while operating privileges suspended or revoked, driving without a license, driving on roadways lane for traffic, driving vehicle at safe speed, and reckless driving. According to that probable cause affidavit, her blood alcohol content is a 0.30. And again, she pleads to just the 1 count of DUI and 1 count of blood alcohol content, 0.20 or greater. The rest of those charges are dismissed, and she violates that probation that she's placed on.
Question, I'm sorry. On the DWLS that you mentioned from May 30th, 2015, do you know the reason that the license was suspended at that point?
I don't judge.
Do you know the reason her license was suspended in March of 2022?
She never has a license here in the state of Florida. She has this suspended license in Pennsylvania.
Right. What was the reason for that suspension? Do you know?
No.
Okay. Fair enough.
Then we move to June 20th of 2015. So again, that span of 21 days, she picks up her 3rd DUI. She's arrested for DUI, driving without a license, driving on roadways laned for traffic, and careless driving. On that one, she pleads to the 1 count of DUI. The remaining charges are dismissed pursuant to a negotiated plea. On that one, her blood alcohol content was only a 0.078. Again, she pleads to all 3 of those cases. And then in October of 2016, she violates the probation on all 3.
Yeah, Jeff, I got your dono. Thank you so much. I appreciate the 10. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Ultimately, in February of 2017, she enters a plea in which her probation is revoked, and she's resentenced to prison in the state of Pennsylvania. January of 2017, also in Pennsylvania, she pled guilty to driving without a license. So after these 3 DUIs, she's still continuing to drive and is convicted of that charge. Then we move to the facts of this case. Again, as mentioned, she's charged with that driving without a license causing death. She never had a license in the state of Florida. her from driving. And then you move into what the state believes are the aggravating factors of this specific set of facts. You've got a driving pattern leading up to the crash. You heard from Mr. Havner that about half a mile prior, she almost causes another crash. There are two different cars that have to take evasive action to avoid being in a crash with them. She runs a red light, and then half a mile later, she rear ends Mr. Laster, who forces his vehicle into a third SUV, and ultimately he passes on scene. That crash occurs at approximately 8:21 p.m. In that front passenger seat, there is an open bottle of Grey Goose vodka, and then you have the admissions to Ormond Beach Police.
There you go. That's what done her in right there. That's it. She had the open bottle, open container. She's got a major drinking problem.
And Mr. Laster, who forces his vehicle into a third SUV, and ultimately he
Major
passes
drinking
on scene.
problem.
That
She's a
crash
bad
occurs
person.
at approximately 8:21 p.m. In that front passenger seat, there is an open bottle of Grey Goose vodka, and then you have the admissions to Ormond Beach Police Department, in which she tells them, "I don't even remember the crash. What I do remember is making leftover burritos in my kitchen." She remembers drinking vodka. She doesn't know how much. She tells them that vodka is her go-to, her drink of choice, and that she recalls leaving the house in search of
Zero.
iced tea, maybe a trip to Wawa and a 7-Eleven on the beach side. And then you have what the state's going to argue to the court is what makes this case so scary and comparable to 7 years prior, in which she's continuing to drive on such a high and elevated BAC. That medical blood draw happens just an hour after the crash, when it's converted by FDLE between a 0.32 and a 0.36, just under an hour after the crash. Then you have the legal blood draw around 4 hours after the crash, and she's got a 0.280, and the active, inactive, and active metabolite of cannabis. The active ingredient and then the inactive and active metabolites. Defense cross-examined Mr. Warner regarding the level of the active ingredient of THC, which was only 1 nanogram at the time, but he said how quickly the cannabis dissipates in the body. And so at the time of the crash, it's the state's position that she would have had impairing abilities to drive in combination with the high level of alcohol.
Impaired driving offenses have gone up here in Rhode Island. They've gone way up since they've legalized marijuana. You know, again, I have my stance on it. I think it's just in my opinion, I think it's a bullshit thing just to cloud society. It's you know, listen, if you want to smoke weed, that's your own thing. I get it if that's what you want to do, but I think smoking weed is just a bullshit thing. It's a distraction, and you can't tell me that they're not putting shit in that weed through those dispensaries. Come on, man. Come on. I don't know. I just think weed is a major, major distraction. I have a lot of people that I know that are longtime pot smokers now, and they're stopping, and their life has improved because they said it just made me lazy. I've wasted so much money. You know, I just think it's a thing to just cloud society, and of course the government grabbed a hold of it, taxed the shit out of it. They're making money off you. They're keeping you doped up, keeping you out of reality. This is just my opinion. But if you want to smoke weed, hey, go for it, you know. But I think it's just another bullshit thing to cloud society now. And look, I mean, it clearly causes things like this. I think it opens up it's a huge gateway. I think alcohol is a huge gateway as well. That's why I don't partake in drinking. I mean, I have friends that were I have one friend that was a major alcoholic and got sober 8 years ago. And I'm so proud of him. He's completely changed his life around. And, you know, I lived with a extremely alcoholic drug addict father. And now my father is forced to be sober because he's essentially going to shit out here pretty soon. He's got Hep C. He's got leukemia, And I don't think cirrhosis, but he's lucky he doesn't have cirrhosis. I mean, he drank since he was 10 years old, and COPD. Very, very sick man. And the last that I heard a couple of weeks ago, he's on full oxygen now. So he actually had to stop working. He cannot work anymore. He was in the union and cannot drive a truck. I haven't heard from him. Haven't heard from him. Don't know how he's doing. Haven't seen him. But I think it just adds to the element of a lot of things in society, especially in relationships with family and friends, and it clouds a lot of things in life. And that's how I feel. Listen, you don't have to agree with my opinion. I don't look down on people that drink or smoke pot. Do your thing. But it's just my opinion. I think it's just a thing to, if I was a pot smoker, I would be the most laziest fucking person. I don't get that whole thing. I don't get the culture. I just don't get it. I don't understand it. I don't want to understand it. But, it's all good. I'm not looking down on anybody. It's your choice to do that stuff. If you want to do it, it's fine. I just find other things to do with my life to partake in that time. And I've had a lot of difficulty with it where, I've had female partners in my life that have struggled with addictions or drinking or pot smoking. And it's not me. It's not my thing. So I just partake, rather just not dating anybody that's kind of into that stuff. Just doesn't do it for me. But anyway, I digress. Let's go back here to Tammy, Sonny, Sytch, Stooch, whatever.
You then move to what the court has to consider here today. As far as sentencing, the court really weighs kind of three different avenues for sentencing somebody. You have the rehabilitation component, the punitive component, and then the protection of the community. As far as her rehabilitation, it's been the defense's presentation here today that she has had chances at rehabilitation. She has had chances on probation after the 3 DUIs in a span of 21 days, and she failed at that probation. She has gone to rehab before, both for substance abuse separately as well as seeking mental health treatment, and that has failed. If anything, she has had escalating behavior to the point where all of those priors are involving substance abuse, driving, or disregard for the law. And she has obtained DUI after DUI until, unfortunately, she finally kills somebody. And that leads into the punitive component, because at this point, her actions have created the ultimate consequence. She took another person's life, and that deserves the maximum given her criminal history. You've heard from the victim's family today. You've heard the impact that Fran Laster had on his family. You see the number of people, and I would argue to the court that this is just a small portion of the community that he has touched here locally. And what's so ironic is that he owned recovery houses, and he spent time trying to help people like the defendant, ultimately for one of the people that he tried so desperately to help to kill him. And then we move on to the protection of the community. The defendant today categorized this event as a stupid decision. I would argue to the court that this is by no means a stupid decision. This is not just one decision. This is decision after decision that she has made to continuously disregard the law. She has demonstrated, based on her criminal history and this particular case, that she cannot abide by any conditions set by this court. She will not abide by any conditions set by this court. And so it's the state's position that probation is not appropriate. Obviously, pursuant to the statute, it's required to have a long enough period for her to take a substance abuse class. I would argue that 6 months is the maximum amount needed to do that. But at this point, 3 DUIs does not stop her from getting behind the wheel of a vehicle impaired on drugs and alcohol. Having a license does not stop her from driving impaired. And there is absolutely nothing short of the maximum amount of incarceration that this court can impose that will protect the community. So we would ask for the 25 years DOC followed by 6 months of probation for her to complete the substance abuse course.
Is there a 4-year minimum mandatory sentence associated with the DUI?
There is, Judge.
And maximum fine of $10,000?
Yes.
In regard to the probationary term, that is so that they can get the alcohol.
Yeah, it's the microphone.
Are you asking for any other conditions, like victim awareness, community service hours?
I'd ask for all the standard conditions of DUI probation.
And then I understand by the statute.
That mic's
driver's
up.
licenses to be permanently
Feedback.
revoked.
Yes, Your Honor, which obviously she never had one.
And in regard to impoundment and immobilization, then if you're asking for all the standard conditions, are you asking for those?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do we have a card that she,
I believe it's still in property and evidence at Ormond Beach Police Department.
beyond that?
Yes.
Woo, that mic feedback, big time. Damn.
I mean,
We don't need to order a touch.
all right.
I guess it's been impounded for a period of time at this point.
They'll come and she'll have the forced course of writing as the doctors testified to, just having been in custody in this time.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, anything else, Dave?
Yeah.
All right, in regard to these DUI manslaughter cases, they're particularly difficult in sentencing in criminal court. We see, of course, many sensitive crimes, much unnecessary pain and suffering by victims, but somehow the DUI manslaughter cases seem to be the worst. Nothing that this court says or does today can bring back Mr. Lassiter, and I'm pretty certain that nothing that I say or do, although I wish it could provide some sort of comfort for the family. Mr. Lassiter, although I'll mention, of course, every human life has infinite value. And the testimony that I've heard was a very, very positive influence on people around him and tried to help people. So it's always sad to lose a human life, particularly one that's such a light in so many people's lives. This family, of course, will forever have the day before this happened and then the day after. And that line in the sand of delineation for them will be a prominent point in their lives that will be just infinitely sad. In this day and age where we have Uber and Lyft and everything else, all these other taxi services, I do have a difficult time sort of unwrapping why it is that we see DUI manslaughter in such a reckless disregard for human life, which is what a DUI manslaughter represents. In this particular case, the defendant is requesting a downward departure. Their burden of proof would be to show me by the preponderance of the evidence that the defendant requires specialized treatment for a mental disorder that is unrelated to substance abuse or addiction or for a physical disability, and that the defendant is amenable to treatment. While I credit the efforts made by the defense in regard to bringing the two very qualified doctors in to testify, the court has some concerns in regard to whether the preponderance of the evidence has been met. And candidly, when the court has questions, it's fine. The reality is somebody has a burden of proof. Questions for this court, given the long history of the substance abuse by the defendant and the overlapping symptoms of the mental illness or the substance abuse, can't say by the preponderance of the evidence that it's unrelated. The substance abuse treatment clearly began long before any symptoms that they've described for me of the mental illness that they're diagnosing. In fairness, Dr. Danziger met with her, I believe, one time. Dr. Fabian met with her 3 times. And a lot of their information was based on her self-reporting. In addition to that, the statement.
So I just looked that up. Her net worth, it says 11 million to 100 grand. They just don't know. They just don't know. So
Okay, the point across that.
could be 11, could
Looking
be
at the
100.
language, it says require specialized treatment. Well, part of that specialized treatment was a mood stabilizer, which I think was pretty much conceded could be provided in the prison system. So I can't say by preponderance of the evidence that the grounds for the downward departure have been met. Had I found that, though, I do want to go ahead and say, and answer the question of whether the court should depart. Even had the court found that the downward departure was met, this court can't say that this is a case where it should depart. The facts of this case are fairly egregious. The defendant admits to drinking vodka before driving in her kitchen while she's preparing, I guess, burritos. Her blood alcohol is very, very high. Though low level, she has some THC in her system. There's an open bottle in the front seat of the car of the vodka that she's drinking, apparently. She runs a red light just prior to this accident, almost causes another accident, slams into the back of this decedent, Mr. Lassiter, so hard that he hits the car in front of him. While he's stopping at a red light at, before 8:30 p.m. in the evening. So through no fault of his own, and I can't say that I've seen anything that Mr. Lassiter could have done to prevent this. Unfortunately, we had the death of Mr. Lassiter.
Carrie, thank you for the dono. I appreciate it.
Mitigation, I do have to acknowledge a few things. While I don't feel that there are grounds to downward depart, I think there was some evidence of at least some current mental health issues in regard to the defendant and some serious addiction issues. She has had some tragedy in her life, although many of us have. And unfortunately, it doesn't really relieve the responsibility of a crime like this. The defendant in this case has entered an open plea. She's taken some responsibility for her actions, and I do credit her for that.
Damn that
In
bad.
regard to the Gabriel case, and I'm going to go ahead and cite the case for the record. It's a Supreme Court case from the state of Florida. It is cited at 314-7-3rd-1243. It's a 2021 case, as I said, out of the Supreme Court of Florida. State's argument in their memorandum of sentencing is that because that's her maximum, that is also her minimum pursuant to the Gabriel case. I don't see any other way that you could read the Gabriel case, and I think, in fairness, the defense has sort of acknowledged that that's pretty much the situation. So, in regards to counts 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, is that accurate? The misdemeanors pursuant to the negotiations and adjudicate the defendant guilty, sentence her to 364 days concurrent with any other counts in this case, with credit for the 364 days that she's already served. She's actually got more credit than that, but that's a statutory maximum. In regard to count 2, driving under a suspended license, causing death or serious bodily injury, I do note it is an aggravator that she had no valid license, and she's not only choosing to drive, but choosing to drive under the influence. Pursuant to this, and state, not to be nitpicky, but I actually come up with the amount of 10.6625 would be the minimum and the maximum. So just to clarify specifically in calculating, I'm going to adjudicate the defendant guilty, sentence her to 10.6625 years in the Department of Corrections.
It's a long time.
Credit is 566 days. So with credit for the 566 days. On count 1, the DUI manslaughter, second degree felony, I'm going to adjudicate you guilty. I'm going to sentence you consecutively to 7 years in the Department of Corrections to be served after the 10.6625. With, again, credit for, well, she's already gotten credit, I guess, on count 2, so that would already be applied. In regard to the remaining 8 years, I'm going to sentence you to followed by 8 years of probation, the conditions of which are following. Let me see where I put this down. There is a 4-year minimum mandatory to count 1, so the first 4 years of that term will be a minimum mandatory sentence. Conditions will be standard conditions of probation, plus she must have a substance abuse evaluation with any follow-up treatment. She must have the alcohol safety education course. If that overlaps with the substance abuse evaluation, of course, there will only be one required. Victim awareness program, 50 community service hours, $10,000 fine, and her driver's license will be permanently revoked. Otherwise, any standard fines and costs. State is not requesting cost of prosecution, cost of investigation, so I'll not be applying those. All right, does that cover everything? State?
And also no information.
All right. Any questions, Ms. Sytch? All right. You have 30 days to appeal. That must be in writing with the clerk of court. If you cannot afford counsel, appoint counsel to represent you.
That's it. Tammy's got a long time behind bars. What a tragedy.
For purposes of appeal now.
Whole
Can we go
situation
ahead
is
and
tragic.
Thank
She's
you.
ruined her life. She's ruined another person's life. And hopefully this time she'll learn her lesson. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. we're gonna-
Yeah, me too.
All right. Court's in recess.
That's it. And she just goes on her way. Okay, well, I just got some approval. So I wasn't going to do this stream, but I don't want to wait 2 days because I'm going to be, what is my schedule for the next 2 days? Hang on 1 second. Don't run out of the room. Don't run out of the room. Let me look at my schedule. Bear with me. I'm going to be probably popping another stream up in about 30 minutes. Yes. TPG, yes. All right, let me do this. Let me post this. I have some breaking news and I have some things that are going to blow everybody's mind. I need to get prepared for the stream, so I'm going to put it out there. It's going to probably about 9 o'clock, so give me about a half an hour. I wasn't going to do this live tonight, but I'm going to do the live because I got the okay to do it. So let's see. And then before I get off this stream, I just want to update everybody on some other things. Hang on a second. Okay. I'm kind of prepared. I'm kind of not prepared for this, but we'll get through it. Let me put this up. All right, let me get the placeholder up. I'm going to put this for about 9. We'll do it at 9:15. So 45 minutes. That way it will post and people will know about it. I have some new information in the Timepiece Gentleman case that actually just broke this afternoon. And I'm going to do a stream here. I have just posted the stream and let me drop the link. So give me about a half an hour to get prepared and I will be back to do that stream. Hang on 1 second. Why is this not working? Why is my thumbnail not coming up? Interesting. Oh, there it is. All right. So I will be there in about 30 minutes. And I have a lot of stuff that's not put out there in this case, but I got permission to put it out today. And we have a lot of documents to go through. And there's a lot of things that are going to blow your mind. I was surprised that I got privileged to this information and I asked permission to put this out and I just got permission about 5 minutes ago. So we are going to do that stream because I think it's something that everybody's going to be interested in. All right, let me just set this up. Excuse me. And then I want to address everybody before I close this down really quick with some things that I got updates on and some really cool things that have happened. Let's see. This I'm going to go to that. Okay. Hang on one second. Let me just update everybody here. So here's some news really quick. So this afternoon, Carrie got some information that the Coconino Sheriff's Department has processed our supplemental reports for Chelsea Grimm. There are 2 on their way to my house as we speak. That is going to probably take a couple of days, considering today is the 30th on Thursday. It's going to take probably Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Probably by Monday or Tuesday, I should receive them. And immediately I will be up giving that information. 2, I had a very nice chat with one of Chelsea's friends, close friends today, for about 45 minutes. It was a fantastic phone conversation. And this person that I spoke with was very appreciative of what I've been doing here, keeping Chelsea's case alive and everything that we have done. I find it very interesting and very funny about this case, and especially Chelsea's case. There are a handful of people out there that are very angry about what I'm doing. Not family, not friends, just people that are very, very angry about what I am doing. I find that odd. I find it kind of distorted. And I'm going to let you know this. I will never stop talking about this case until Chelsea comes home. I don't care what you attack me with. I don't care what messages you send me, because I know that I have the approval from her close friends. And I know, and I'm just going to show you this. I know I have the approval from Chelsea's sister. When I was posting in that missing persons group, she approved what I was doing. So I'm approved. I will never stop. So you can harass me, you can threaten me, you can try to belittle my character and say what a terrible person I am and that I should immediately shut down my podcast. I know you're watching and I know who you are. And you sent me a message about a half an hour ago, and I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to stop. And I don't care what you did for a job. And I'm just going to keep doing this. I have the approval from her friends and family. So we will find out what happened to Chelsea. And I think, you know, for some reason, this makes you very, very angry. It makes this small community of people very angry. And it makes me question these people. Why are you so angry about it? What do you know? Are you hiding something? Is there something that we're going to discover in this investigation? So it's okay. I know who you are. You can continue to harass me and you continue to put things out there. It's fine. But I'm not going to stop. I have the approval from the family. I have the approval from the friends. And I can obtain this information because it's public. And I will put it out there to not have the spin that the Idaho 4 case had, to not have the spin that all these other cases have that we cover. I'm not going to let this happen to this girl. And you can go on and talk about money grabs and that I'm a disgusting person and that I should shut my channel down and this and that. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen, because when you send me these messages, it empowers me to work harder. So keep it up. Thank you. Thank you for the motivation. I do appreciate it. And I can't believe that I gave this person that much time. But anyway, we will move on we will continue. I am very excited to get those supplement reports on Monday or Tuesday. Hopefully, it's something new to the case and we can get something. Oh, and on the flip side of that too, I actually reached out to Kelly Townsend, the lead private investigator on the case, just to see, if there is anything going on in Chelsea's case, but we haven't heard anything. We haven't heard anything in the mainstream media. I haven't heard anything from anybody in quite a while. It's been kind of silent. So hopefully that we get some new information. I know Phoenix is processing. Carrie shared that information with me today, so we should be getting some supplemental reports from that as well. And hopefully you have some new information for you all, and we can keep things clear. The friend that I spoke with the Chelsea's friend that I spoke with today was very appreciative of what I have been doing, and very appreciative that we've kept her case out into the public because no one's talking about it, and that we've kept the facts straight. So thank you. If you're watching, thank you for that time, and I appreciate it. And I actually have now her personal phone number, and she said anytime that I want to reach out, just please do. We can talk. If there's answers that I need or questions that I have, she's happy to help me out. So all good stuff there. All good stuff there. And it was a great conversation. So let's do this. Give me about 15 minutes. We're going to fire up the TPG stream. I will drop that link again for everybody to go over. You're not going to want to miss it. And I'll see you all in a couple minutes, and have a great night. I'll see you over there in about 15 minutes, and we're going to kick off that show. Take care.